Well, welcome back to the Cybersecurity Whisperer, the show where we take the week's chaos and translate it into things you can actually do on Monday. I'm Elliott Franklin, and I talk fast, so caffeinate accordingly. This week, the entire internet decided an AI broke into the NSA. Meanwhile, and I cannot stress this enough, tens of thousands of firewalls got popped because somebody never changed the password from admin. So we've got a story everybody's screaming about and a story everybody should be screaming about. Spoiler, they're not the same story, so let's go. Okay, the big one. You've seen the headline, Mythos hacked the NSA. Anthropic's Mythos model supposedly broke into nearly all of the NSA's classified systems, not in weeks, in hours. Here's what's actually been verified, because the chain of custody on this matters. On June 11th, Senator Mark Warner, Vice Chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, said that General Joshua Rudd, who runs both the NSA and Cyber Command, told him the model broke into almost all of our classified systems, not in weeks, but in hours. Now, read that sentence again, because it's a Russian nesting doll. It's a senator, in public, repeating what a general told him in private about a red team exercise. There is no official NSA statement, none. The only source is Warner relaying a private conversation. So when you see breaking NSA confirmed splashed across your feed, this isn't a confirmation. It's a game of telephone wearing a press badge. My favorite take came from an AI researcher who basically said, look, the model probably found bugs in all their systems, totally plausible, and then the hyperbole telephone game upgraded found bugs broke into, which honestly is the most realistic threat model I've heard all week. Well, remember the Whisperer rule, confirmed by a guy who heard it from a guy is not a CVE, so we need to verify the chain before you forward the panic. But, and here's where I stop being a skeptic, the underlying capability, of course, we all know is real, and that's the part worth your attention. Anthropic's own red team says the model can find and exploit zero-day vulnerabilities in every major operating system and every major browser. And they cite a 17-year-old remote code execution flaw in FreeBSD. That's what they keep saying. It's kind of like their prime example. Because it found and exploited fully autonomously from a single prompt. So forget the breach drama. Here's the actual headline. An automated system compresses weeks of human vulnerability research into hours. Yeah, that's the story. Not robot hacks Pentagon. It's the clock just got a lot faster for everybody. And there's real fallout from this. Of course, the Commerce Department invoked export controls on June 12th over these models' cyber capabilities, and that directive has still not been lifted. So if you're running AI governance like some of us are at the day job, that's your reminder that the regulatory floor under these tools is still wet paint. And so if your org is piloting frontier AI, write down which models you depend on today, because export controls turned available into error message overnight, and so you need to make sure you have a fallback. Well, while Twitter was busy writing the AI apocalypse, here's what actually broke into things this week. And friends, it's quite embarrassing. Fortinet, again, CISA put out an urgent warning about a campaign called FortiBleed, believed to be Russian-speaking actors hammering internet-facing FortiGate appliances. As of June 19th, the compromised device count was only 86,644. And you want to know the attack vector? Again, we already teased this, so make sure you're sitting down. Default accounts, built-in factory credentials that nobody renamed. The majority of compromised credentials were, of course, they were generic admin and built-in system accounts. SOC Radar basically said the attacker had a reliable target list before brute forcing anything, because so many shops never rotated the factory passwords. Guys, it's 2026. We have AI that allegedly hacks the NSA, and the actual breach of the week is we left the default password on the firewall. We contain multitudes. Come on, the fanciest threat in the news still walked in through a door you forgot to lock every single week. The hits just keep coming. CISA gave federal agencies 3 days to patch a Splunk flaw that was allowing unauthenticated remote code execution. And then you've got Microsoft's June patch Tuesday that shipped a measly 198 vulnerabilities, 3 of them 0 days, already being exploited before the patch even existed. And for everyone running a build pipeline, this one's nasty. Attackers compromised 32 packages in the Red Hat Cloud Services NPM namespace, collectively pulled about 117,000 times per week. by breaching the pipeline through GitHub Actions instead of stealing a token. Translation, it sailed straight past your code review because review wasn't the door they used. Oh, and meet the week's rising villain, a ransomware called The Gentleman, a name with a confidence I can only describe as unearned. They're shipping EDR killers to affiliates, tools that disable your endpoint defenses before the ransomware runs, abusing trusted sign drivers. Look, they went from 35 victims, late last year to 182 just in Q1 alone. It was a growth startup energy. Terrible mission statement. And so look, here's what you need to do. Rename and rotate every default and factory credential on internet-facing gear today. This is the whole ball game. Patch your internet-facing systems on an hours to days clock, not quarterly. Start with Splunk and your Fortinet boxes. Lock down your CI/CD permissions and verify that you've got no compromised NPM package versions hiding in your dependency tree. All right, I refuse to send you off to doom scroll. The defenders booked some wins this week, and they're real. Look, we had Operation Endgame, which is the international law enforcement effort. They took down 106 servers tied to the Sotgulish malware operation, and they pointedly called it the beginning of further action, which, of course, we know is law enforcement equivalent of we know where you live. Interpol disrupted Sniper D's, which is a phishing as a service platform that had been running for a decade with 201 arrests across 13 countries. A decade-long criminal storefront closed. And in the everybody piled on category, we have Meta, Starlink, and Microsoft teamed up with the FBI to delete over 1.4 million accounts and seize millions in crypto tied to scam networks targeting Americans. But here's the data point I want tattooed on the inside of your eyelids. The World Economic Forum found that heavy AI users on the defensive side can shorten brief life cycles by about 80 days and cut our average breach costs by up to 1.9 million. Now read that next to the segment we started with. The same technology behind the scary headline is the biggest force multiplier defenders have ever been handed. The whole game right now is simply who operationalizes it faster, them or us. So let's be us. The AI that scares you in the morning headline is the AI saving your incident response team 80 days by the afternoon. Same tool, so pick your seat. So what do we do with all this? Well, I got asked this week, should we go back to the basics, encourage each other, speak at conferences, give back, or just rest for the summer? My answer is yes, all of it. Here's how I'd spend it. Look, we say this every week. Back to the basics, non-negotiable. Rename the defaults, rotate the credentials, patch on a real clock. Patch windows are shrinking from weeks to hours, and yet the breach of the week was still a factory password. Master the fundamentals, and you've defeated most of what's actually hitting people. The basics aren't beneath you; they're the job. Encourage one another, and I truly mean this. Look, Accenture looked at 550,000 job postings and found 59% of roles need both technical and strategic skills, but only 40% of us bring both. That gap doesn't close with a new tool; it closes with people pouring into people. Mentor somebody this summer. Treat the junior analyst's dumb question like the best question you've heard all day, because the day they stop asking is the day something slips through. Speak at conferences, get on the stage, submit the talk, tell people what broke and what you learned. This whole field runs on practitioners willing to stand up and say, here's what happened to us so it doesn't happen to you. It's not bragging. That's herd immunity. And give back. Teach the free class at the library. Sit on the board. Help the school district or the little water utility that's getting hammered and has nobody. Attackers are increasingly targeting education, healthcare, and nonprofits, places where the disruption turns into real-world harm fast. Those folks need exactly what you know. And summer rest, yeah, that one too. And I'm not just being nice. You cannot pour from an empty cup. The threats will still be here in September. They are remarkably consistent that way. So go be with your family, sit on the porch, watch the sun go down. A rested defender makes better decisions than an exhausted one. That's not soft. That's operational resilience for the human in the chair. So that's the week. The headline that wasn't quite the headline, the boring threats that were the real threats, and the reminder that the answer has not changed. Do the fundamentals, lift each other up, keep showing up. This has been the Cybersecurity Whisperer. Go lock the door you forgot about, and then go get some rest. See you next week.